Joseph Hansen. You are correct.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Noir by Northwest. If you're familiar with Jason Kurylo, it is from a clip where he shared why you should be reading Joseph Hansen. And there was supposed to be a full interview. That, however, had some technical issues, not the least of which was dead awful. And Jason was great, and Jason's been great enough to redo the interview. So, Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Uh, Thanks for having me. My name is Jason Kurylo. I'm a writer and educator located in Burnaby, just outside of Vancouver, in BC. Proud Canadian. Elbows up. And I, for the past couple of years, have been writing primarily hard-boiled noir, some short stories, and I have a work in progress, a novel about Greer Carmichael, who is a detective in 1984 Vancouver, and she is a wonderful character. I'm having a lot of fun working with her.
And have you always written noir, or is this something that you've come to more recently?
It's something I've come to recently. I have challenged myself by writing in many different genres. I've never really challenged myself to say I must get published. I must be a household name. I'm not that kind of person. I've mainly written short stories for myself and for my friends and that sort of thing. I had a previous life before I was a teacher. I worked for CBC Radio, and I worked for many freelance publications. You and I met through college media many moons ago, so I've written for a very long time. I also did some work on stage as stand-up and sketch. So storytelling has always been a part of my life. But noir specifically is a fairly new love affair in my life. I was introduced to noir through Looney Tunes, of all things, when I was a kid. There's a Bugs Bunny cartoon where he ends up in a deserted mansion with a character based on Edward G. Robinson from the old noir movies. And of course, the stock broad characters of, yeah, see, you're not going to get me, coppa. That stuff was part of the wallpaper when I was growing up, right? But as far as noir fiction goes, it's a fairly new phenomenon in my life. And so I'm in my 50s, and I discovered Raymond Chandler, and it was a revelation. And read Dashiell Hammett and read James Ellroy, and just started reading widely in the genre. And of course, locals, Brian Weeb, for example, here in BC.
I think you mean Sam.
I'm so sorry, Sam. Sam, I'm very sorry. Brian Weeb is actually an instructor at BCIT. He works in the media department. Sam, I'm very sorry. Please forgive me.
We'll have to write a song. These are the weebs I know.
These are the weebs I know. And yes, of course, Sam Weeb, with all of his Vancouver and BC based fiction. So I've been reading a lot of it over the last few years. And I started writing this character, Greer Carmichael, for short stories. And through that, much like Raymond Chandler's original Philip Marlowe stories, has grown into a longer piece, and that's what I'm working on currently.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's an interesting point about Looney Tunes. I remember when you brought that up in the initial interview, and I had to think back on my own life, and the old media. I think you and I grew up at a point in time where, previous generations' media was still our media as well, and there was a lot of references to Casablanca, to the Maltese Falcon, Double Indemnity, and they would show up on clip shows, which is what I recall. But absolutely, Looney Tunes was part of that.
and for sure, if you look at any of the episodic television that we grew up on before streaming, and before every show seemed to have one story arc through a season or through multiple seasons, all the episodic television would have episodes where characters would find themselves in a dream sequence, or on Star Trek in the holodeck, where they were playing a Sam Spade character, or they were on the tarmac with Humphrey Bogart, that kind of thing. So like I said, it was just part of the wallpaper for so long that when I finally discovered that, I've never read that stuff. So when I started reading it, I hoovered it up. It's been a wonderful 5 or 6 years. I'm certainly not as versed in the genre as some of the folks that you'll be talking to, but it's a fantastic universe that I'm thrilled to be playing in.
So I want to jump back to something you said. You were
Sure.
talking about how you're not writing to be a household name or to make scads of cash. So I guess, some people might be wondering, why the hell are you doing it at all?
That's a great question.
And certainly my wife asked me the same question quite frequently. I think storytellers have they have a duty to themselves to craft these stories somehow, whether it's telling ghost stories around the campfire, or passing on oral history of the family, or doing stand-up, or writing stories. They're all the same. And even as a teacher, when I'm in the classroom, a lot of the things that I teach wind up being storytelling adjacent. In order to make this work, you need to tell a story, right? So anyone who has that storytelling gene in them feels they're compelled to do it. And I'm getting a little older. I don't have the ability to get all my frustrations out through sport all the time anymore, because my body just won't take it. So creatively, that's how I can get some of those feelings out and put them on the page.
Fantastic. And you mentioned earlier about you have had a very varied work life, which I find interesting. So you've spent years as a journalist, a critic, sports writer, also a community writer and observer. I'm curious what those habits have given you, what the roles have given you that make you better at writing fiction.
Well, definitely as we age, we just have more life experience to put things in perspective, to be able to, if we open ourselves to other points of view, we're able to understand a wider range of character. Hopefully that means that we can present a wider range of character in our writing. One of the things that I find when I look at stuff that I wrote when I was young, and even when you look at other writers, when the stuff they write when they're young, typically all the characters sound the same. If you look at, Quentin Tarantino movies, everybody sounds like Quentin Tarantino, right? Brilliant, great, but everybody sounds the same. There's not really a breadth of character, right? And it's the same thing with fiction, that often, not always, but often younger writers tend to be kind of samey. Or their books, they just do the same thing over and over. Of course, we have the danger of doing that as older writers as well. But in my opinion, when you're looking at something like noir, which is supposed to be world weary and being able to react to almost anything with, yeah, I've seen that before. Well, I have seen it before, so I'm able to present that in my stories.
And what would you say that a younger writer has something that they're in touch with that maybe we've lost?
Well, of course, and this is something I'll use the analogy of music, that when you look at the work of young musicians, there's an energy there, and I think we see that in all forms of art and in a lot of professions as well, that are not artistic as much. Look at all the work that Elton John or Bob Dylan or whoever, even Leonard Cohen, did when they were young, and they put out mountains of work in their 20s and 30s, and kind of just spun their wheels after that. Or you'll hear people say, well, it's not as good as their old stuff. There's a danger to that, because you do get set in your ways. You do get, like I said, well, I've seen this before, I'm not as excited about it. So if I'm not excited about it, how can my readers be excited about it? So there is that danger if you let yourself become complacent, or if you let yourself fall into old tricks. For myself, I can't talk for other writers. For myself, I've not published. I've not finished a manuscript yet. I've done short stories, of course, but for this is my first novel, and so I'm pretty bloody excited about the story. Now, talk to me in 10 years and see if I'm still excited about book number 6.
But you have had a bit of an achievement recently. You were shortlisted, were you not?
I was longlisted. So the work in progress that I'm working on, it's called For Services Rendered, a Greer Carmichael shit show. And it was longlisted for a novel beginnings prize out of the United States. And there were 15,000 entries, and I was longlisted in the top 180, 183. I can't remember the exact number. So that was very nice and very encouraging. Sadly, there was no money involved, but I'm not in it for money. Yeah. So,
and just maybe if you can help us out,
sure.
Here, if someone doesn't know the difference between longlisting and shortlisting.
Yeah. So when whenever you have competitions for short stories, for novels, for, you might hear about the Booker Prize, the Giller Prize, things like that. They have the wide swath of entries, and it might be thousands of titles. It could be hundreds, depends. They will usually have a team of readers that is basically saying, yep, nope, 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 yep, nope, 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 nope. And then they pass the yep pile on to the official judges. And so that is the long list. And that's usually going to be, you know, like in this case, the prize that I was in, that I was up for, was about 1% of the entries. And then the official judges start reading, and they're going to usually choose a handful, maybe 5, maybe 10, that are shortlisted. And I've had short stories that were shortlisted before. In this particular case, I got to the long list, which was 180 some titles. Did not make the short list of 10, but that's okay. I'm all right with that. It was very encouraging, and that long list is now actually a small community of writers on in a Discord group that we've all talked about our experience. So it's been good.
Cool. And my final question for the interview is, what's a story about Vancouver or the Lower Mainland in general that no one is telling? One you think ought to be told?
Ooh, you did not prepare me for this question.
It's new.
What is one story? Well, okay, I'm going to be completely selfish and I'm going to talk about my book that I'm working on. Is the world kind of came to Vancouver after major events. So, of course, we hosted the World Cup this year. We hosted the Olympics in 2010. And we hosted Expo 86 in 1986. And all of those have resulted in huge influxes of new immigrants, new people from across Canada. Wonderful, amazing. Not a lot of stuff in fiction. A is set in Vancouver. B is set in Vancouver pre-Expo. And the Vancouver that was almost a city. It was more of a big town.
Yeah.
At the time. And so that's why one of the reasons I've set my story in 1984 is to get that pre-Expo vibe about what was the city like before all the development that we see today.
Yeah, and Aaron Chapman. You've read Aaron Chapman?
I have not.
Aaron Chapman is worth reading for that.
Okay.
Last Gang in Town. I'm trying to remember the name of his latest one. It had to do with some crimes in the West End, plus
Right.
history of the Penthouse, history of music venues in Vancouver. Good local historian to check
Right.
out. So,
And
Jason.
one story I do hope to tell in Greer, a booktube, is going to center around the old BC penitentiary lands in New Westminster. So that is a piece of our local history that has definitely disappeared behind the facade of development.
Yeah.
And so that's going to feature in book 2.
And that's something Brian/Sam Weed does very well is tackling.
Sam, I'm so sorry, man.
Yeah, tackling developers in. Anyways, thank you very much, Jason. Much appreciated as always, and look forward to catching up with you sometime in the future.